What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Freddy and Friends. And today, for you drum nerds, I got a special guest. I would say this gentleman's one of the OGs of extreme drumming. He's played in quite a few notable bands. And he also plays in a band called Megadeth. Dirk Verbeuren.
To be here, Freddy.
What's up,
Thanks
dude?
for having me, man.
Thank you so much for coming, man.
Thank you.
It's so hard sometimes because people are so busy here.
Yeah.
And, I always try to give enough room and everybody's touring or everybody's busy.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you coming on.
It's a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I had the opportunity of, we had met before, but finally getting to see you in action at that wonderful clinic hosted by Zed. Shout out to Zed Amiram, by the way, our mutual friend.
Yes.
You put on a great event.
It was wonderful.
It was wonderful. And, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know too much about your playing. Of course, I knew who you were and I knew the bands. And I'm also a jazz drummer. So, as much respect as I have for all the mediums, it's not the music that I really listen to.
Right.
Megadeth I grew up on too, though. So, I mean, that wasn't too strange. But so I was like, let's check this out, right? And I was so impressed, man. I was so impressed by a lot of things, and we'll discuss them. But I want to start here. The first thing that I noticed is, you're not 25 years old, man.
No. I wish.
You're not, this is a young man's sport.
Yeah.
And the kind of music you play is you're seeing guys get replaced by younger guys, right? And I know that Megadeth is not as, extreme as some of the other stuff that you've come from, but I feel like there's a certain point in life where you have to decide, like, well, I'm going to start taking care of myself. Because in order to be able to do what you're doing at the level you're doing it, you're doing something right. And I wanted to start there because I know you have, you follow a special diet. I know you work out. There's a bunch of stuff you do, and you're obviously able to maintain this kind of playing at your age, which is impressive. Because like I said, a lot of guys in our space are banged up. They're starting to get injuries. They're starting to fall off, and it's a real thing. And I always talk about kind of fitness and health and wellness within the drum community. So tell me about it, man. I mean, what do you do to stay in the shape you're in to play this kind of music?
Yeah, man. It's obviously the awareness that this is becoming more and more necessary. I notice as I'm, aging that like certain things that used to be like easy are not necessarily as easy. Yeah. And then it's making decisions in accordance. So I'm lucky in that, I've been eating really healthy for the past roughly 20 years since I met my wife, who grew up being a vegetarian very young. Okay. She kind of inspired me since I've always been an animal person.
It's always the woman that kind of makes sure that everything goes right.
Of course. That goes without saying. Hannah, my wife, is a wonderful person, and she really inspired me to, to follow that path. So that was kind of like a starting point. And then she's also a very fit person. She's been a CrossFit coach now for a number of years, but even before that, she was always working out. Cool. So she kind of inspired me to take that on as well, to do like at the very least stretching, yoga, some fitness, some strength training. I'm not the most regular with it, but I do enough of it to where, I can take the touring, I can take the practicing. And a lot of it is also really just getting behind the drums and playing.
Staying with it
because like you said, especially the more extreme stuff, Megadeth is kind of a different kind of thing because it's not the most extreme drumming compared to some of the other stuff I've done, but it's more of a stamina effort because we play long shows and they're visual. I do a lot more visual stuff.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you kind of had to up your stage presence game at some point, right? To do the Megadeth stuff. Yeah,
I realized we're on these big stages. I don't want to just sit behind the drums and play. And also there's room in the songs. There's a lot of spots where I can stand up, interact with the crowd, raise my hands, do some different things that I wasn't really doing much before. Yeah. And I felt like that's what Megadeth should be. That's what the band deserves, and then on these big stages, it's a way for the people that are maybe further away to notice like, hey, there's a drummer there,
There's actually a drummer.
It's not just some guy sitting there and like recorded drums playing through. I'm kidding, but like You know, so that was like it's a different approach, right? But for the more extreme stuff, like the stuff I played before and still do on the side,
Yeah.
that really takes to just go in and play. You know, if you let that slack off as you're getting older, like you might lose it for a long time. So it's just about going in and practicing.
During the clinic, you played some of the older stuff, the Soilwork stuff, the Scarf stuff. I hadn't known much about Soilwork, to be honest. And after I left there, I was pretty keen on checking it out. Just pulled up a couple random tracks, and there you are, probably blasting at like 250 on a couple of the songs, or maybe more. I don't even know. I mean, but I knew it was up there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's like 12 plus years ago or something like that. And you know, that stuff was kind of, it wasn't really that popular then. You know what I mean? It was very, very niche. And now we're seeing it explode. But you're to maintain that nowadays, I mean, you have to practice it, right? I mean, but you have to practice it being smart, because that's this kind of stuff that'll.
Oh yeah, it'll fuck you up.
It'll fuck you up. Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. I think it's about going in, being, you know, aware of your limitations, taking the time. Like sometimes I don't get to practice that stuff for a while, and then I know, look, this is going to take me 1 or 2 weeks to kind of get back to where I want to be. You know, so just going in, doing the work, not pushing too hard. Yeah. It's also refining technique. I've refined my technique a lot since even the Soilwork years, you know, 12, 13 years ago.
Sure.
My foot technique has become a lot better. My hands, I'm just more aware of everything, and I'm practicing smarter instead of harder. Yeah. So that's kind of how I do it. But, you know, it's of course an uphill battle because we're not getting any younger. But I really I look at people like Pete Sandoval, you know, from former Morbid Angel, who plays with I Am Morbid now and Terrorizer, and he's like 62. Yeah. Still blasting, you know.
Yeah. No, it's something they had to do that was smart at some point to keep it going.
Right.
You know, I even find, you know, even the kind of stuff I do, I mean, you know, warming up now in my 40s, I got to at least warm up 20 plus minutes before I even consider like really trying to play, and more, honestly, probably 30, you know, just to get loose enough to not hurt myself trying to go for something. And I imagine, you know, with the extreme stuff, there has to be a point where you have to figure out how to play at a volume that's I mean, you know, you're mic'd up and stuff like that, but there's triggers. But you have to figure out that sweet spot where you could actually maintain it and not kill yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point you're bringing up. A lot of it is not playing too loud when you're starting, you know, your practice session. I don't always warm up. I usually do, but sometimes I just go straight in and I'm feeling it. So I like want to play songs, and then I kind of feel like how good is it going? How bad is it going? You know, am I struggling? But it's really just about kind of keeping the volume maybe a little bit lower, you know, in those first few tracks, and then you can kind of build it up as you get warm. And it's all the little tricks, you know, using the right pedals, the right snare drum. Like you saw in the clinic, I switched snare drums for the
piccolo
stuff.
one,
The piccolo is like what I already used back in the day, because it's just a lot more.
No, you need the tension to help you with the rebounding and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you find, obviously, the equipment over the years has really enabled you to take your techniques and push it?
Specifically the pedals. I was always a chain pedal guy, and always Tama. And when Tama came out with the Dynasync, I got to do some prototype testing here when they were building that. And I'd never really found a direct drive pedal that I liked that worked for me. But with that one, I was like, okay, you know, as I saw the iterations, this is going to work. And so I switched to that when it came out. And it took me some time to get used to it, but now it's like it's interesting you say that, because
Zed just loaned me an Axis pedal.
Nice.
And because I've been talking to him about it. He's like, gotta try these things, man. Yeah. I've never played a direct drive pedal. Right. What is the learning curve with those? I mean, I've played them, but like, you know, depending on the tension, sometimes it feels great. Like I played his drums there. He had a lot of tension. I was like, I can't do this. Yeah. What is the learning curve with those kind of pedals?
I think it really depends on where you're coming from. So for me, I played the Speed Cobras prior, which are physically a very similar shape.
Pretty much what I play now.
Pedal, to the Dynasync. And the Dynasync has this cool cam ratio setting that if you put it all the way one way, it feels a lot like a Speed Cobra. And then you can progressively slide it the other way, and it starts feeling lighter and lighter like a direct drive. So I just did like a progressive, you know, I started out all the way Speed Cobra, and then I started sliding it more and more towards like, okay, now we're coming to a more direct drive.
So you weaned yourself into it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was like, let's see if this works. And it does, you know, especially for the faster stuff. It's just a lot less effort, and it also allowed me to refine my swivel technique on my right foot, which was really crappy.
Oh. And, are you a lefty?
No, I'm not. But my
Your left foot swivel? My left foot's better in the swivel.
Yeah, left foot just kind of a slave foot, you know. It just doesn't have as much pressure from the body.
Maybe so.
I'm not the only guy. I've talked to other drummers that have the same thing.
Yeah.
So
when did that technique, and you know, we're both friends with James Payne, and I kind of look to him as always one of the, you know, the greats of that technique. But when did that actually come into the space? Like, when did you start seeing people swiveling?
I didn't really know that it was called that until probably people like, you know, George Callias
was doing it.
Yeah, he was one of the guys. You know, my left foot was always doing it, and I didn't really notice until somebody else.
It kind of naturally starts to happen.
Yeah,
you know, at a certain point. Yeah,
and I didn't think too much about it, but then I realized at some point, and when the swivel was becoming like a thing, that like, why is my right foot struggling so much? Why am I working so hard? And it took me like a decade to teach myself to, you know, not a decade of continuous practicing on it every day, but as I could, you know, to kind of teach my right foot to follow up. So, you know, and now it's been a few years that I'm pretty comfortable just sitting down and playing 230, 240 without warming up, because it's all about technique, you know. If you have the right technique and the right settings, and I don't use triggers, so like I'm all about having enough power that can work.
Yeah. No triggers.
No triggers.
No triggers at all. Wow. That's
I've
amazing.
never used triggers on the kit, with a few exceptions of like a fill-in show where they were used to triggers or stuff like that. Yeah.
Sure. That's impressive. Even for the self-monitoring, because the bass drums get so boomy and it just gets muddy in the mix. And
so I solved that by just having a couple of Shure 91 betas, like, you know, in the kicks and just into my mixer, and so I can EQ my.
Are they like right on the head, like inside?
Yeah.
I guess that's
it kind of feels triggerish almost, you know, in a way. Like
you get the attack.
Attack, exactly.
Interesting.
So that works great.
It's a great tip. Yeah, I'm remiking up some stuff in a different configuration for my stuff, and I'm really looking into my bass drum miking techniques.
Try the Beta 91. It's great.
I have a Beta 91. I also have I think what else am I forget, but I have a couple mics, and that boomy thing is just you know, that's like the plight of the bass drum miking.
It is. I mean, you know, growing up, like rehearsing without any means, and, you know, back in the day before there were like really any tools available to do that kind of stuff, I never heard my feet. And
never heard your feet.
Yeah, you would go to the studio and be like, oh, I thought I knew all these parts well, but I'm playing like crap because like I could never hear my feet.
You can't hear the feet. Yeah, no, it's almost as bad. The last thing I did that was monitored up, I couldn't hear the hi-hat, and I was dying.
Oh man,
dying.
The worst.
It's rough.
It is. So it's all about finding these little solutions over time that allow you to, you know, even during the clinic, that's all I did, is just have the kicks in there, the backing tracks, the click, and that's it. And everything else, I just use the natural drum sound because it's the easiest and the most comfortable. You know? Instead of having monitors blasting at my ears and like, you know, the more natural it is, I feel the more easy it is to just play the way you play.
Yeah. I thought, like, as you were playing through the songs, there was such a nice progression of different you were weaving styles in there. You were weaving a lot of different things in a lot of your music. And I guess what I saw that was impressive to me, and a lot of my friends are doing this style of music, and especially the last 2-3 years, I've been paying attention to it more. There's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of cool tricks that, like, I think for like a guy like me that plays jazz, fusion, a little bit of rock, like, could steal from you guys some really cool shit. Like obsessed with some of the cymbal choke stuff. Love that good old, like, you know, instead of ending on the crash, you just kind of end on a bell. And there's just some really sweet little things. Tell me about like some of those like nuances that you found over the years playing that kind of music.
It's a good observation, man. I always enjoyed dynamic playing, you know, and creativity within, not just in the beats and stuff, the choice of beats, but fills. So somebody once told me, man, you just have an endless array of fills, but it's because I'm constantly challenging myself to try different things. So even my practice routines or my warm-up routines, like, constantly keep changing, because I do something for a while and then I kind of get bored with it, and then I like try to like think about like, oh, what is it that I'm struggling with right now? Oh, let me do that. Let me do stuff where I play a lot of like left hand on the hat instead of right hand normally, what I normally do, to practice that, and etc. And then I develop exercises around it that I just do for a while and then forget about it and move on to something else. But it's really about this creative, you know, I'm obsessed with, you know, you as a jazz drummer, I'm obsessed with improvisation. Like that's like the ideal, the ultimate, like,
it's the only thing I care about. I don't even want to play the beat.
Right. But that's like, to me, that's like the ultimate form of expression, you know, and it's what I love in jazz, but I also try to bring that to what I do, right? Whatever it is, whether it's metal or this kind of metal or that or rock, or it doesn't matter. I always try to have this approach of like, when I sit down and I play, you could press record and it would be fine, you know? And that's just my state of mind, to not think about it. So getting rid of the red light fever, getting rid of being afraid that there's cameras or people watching or friends saying, hey, can you play something for me? Like you're a drummer, you know? Yeah. And just play and just don't think about it and just let the music happen. And even if there's stuff in there that you're like, I'm not quite sure about that, let's just keep going, just do your thing.
Interesting.
And that's where a lot of that, what you've observed, comes from, you know? It's a freedom that I'm looking for that's like going to be a quest probably that I'll never reach the end of. Which
You'll never get there.
Yeah, no. This is great. That's
keep going, Yeah. No, it's interesting to me. It's very, very cool, and I have so much respect for you guys that are doing this kind of music, and likewise. And then you guys look at some jazz players and you're like, well, that's cool. Like it's like it's so different, you know. Yeah. It's almost like and I have this conversation with a lot of people that play more of the extreme and the metal music and stuff like that. It's almost as if they like were obsessed with the music first, and then they picked up the drums. It's like the music dictated to them how they were going to, what kind of drummer they were going to be, you know, because it's very, very particular.
That's absolutely it, man. Like you nailed it, because I feel like I'm more a fan of music than of drums. And that sounds really weird to say
I get it.
For somebody who has a career as a drummer. And I love drums. Like I adore drums, but to me, it has to be in service of something, you know, even if it's solo drums, it has to be service of
something. Yeah.
So it's absolutely the music. And I remember, like, you know, one of the guys that I was obsessed with growing up, and you know, still am with his drumming, is Dave Lombardo, because he had such a drive that was unique to him, but it was also in service of the songs that he was playing. You know, that's why it was like, oh, this is cool. I want to do this, you know? I
mean, when you put Slayer on back in, you know, I guess I was probably listening to them, it was early 90s, you'd be like, what the hell is this? It's crazy. You know, this guy's nuts. All right. And he had so much power and just so much going behind everything. It was pretty impressive.
But then this creativity and the fills of like that comes from like Tito Puente and things that he listened to from his background as a Cuban, you know, and like just bringing these things in that are just completely like left field when you think about it. And that's why his style became so different than others.
His style was often tried to be imitated, but I mean, Dave is just, and he's still going.
Oh man, he's another example of a guy who's like, you know, pushing an older age and just riffing like it's like he's still 20, you know? And it's, what was I going to say? Dave, amazing in this style. So the current landscape. Yeah. And I have this conversation a lot with drummers. I believe that, you know, just for lack of a better term, metal, you know, or this style of music is the most popular for drummers right now. If you go on social, you go anywhere, everybody wants to be playing this style of music. Right. It's very interesting because 5-6 years ago, they were into gospel chops. And before that, I don't even know what they were into. Right. I'm still waiting for them, you know, the next change. But right now we're here and it's having a huge moment. Mm-hmm. And I guess for like someone like you, I mean, it's got to be incredible, right? You're just surrounded by what you love doing. Yeah. But it also, and I think you mentioned this at the clinic, and this is interesting. There's so many guys out there that are just doing crazy stuff, you know, and, you know, at your level, obviously you look at that and be like, well, that's just like, how do you take it all in and, you know, and look at that like logically and be like, well, you know, these guys are great. It's unbelievable. I got to try to learn this, or I can't even touch that. Like, you know what I'm getting at? Right. Like, how does that affect you? I don't think too much about it, to be honest. It inspires me. Like when I see somebody like, let's say, Janne Jaloma from Dark Funeral, you know, who plays like 300 plus BPM blast beats, like it's you know, making a cup of coffee or something. Right. And he's a friend of mine, and I'm just like, dude, this is ridiculous, you know. But I also know that physically I can't do that. Right. You know, and if I wanted to do that, I'd probably have to dedicate like a year of my life to doing that 5 hours a day or something and figuring it out. Yeah. But I do talk with people like that about like, what's your approach? You know, so you learn things from it that I then also use for my own stuff. But it's also not a contest, you know. I think I'm interested in seeing all these different approaches and then kind of like continuing my own approach with some hints of those things in there, because I feel like my own approach it works for me, you know. So I'm not, you know, I'm a very versatile drummer, I think, you know, because I've had to adapt to so many different situations over time. Like, for instance, Megadeth, you know, you come into a band that has a very established
Yeah, you got to play the songs the way they were made to be played.
I wouldn't want to be in the crowd and see a guy putting like all kinds of stuff in there that's not supposed to be there.
I'm sure Dave wouldn't be too happy either.
For sure. But like, I understand it, it comes from even a place where he doesn't even really have to tell me that, because I wouldn't do that anyway.
Well, that's being a professional.
Yeah, right. But like, the versatility is something that I thrive off of, and that informs what we were talking about earlier, which is the improvisational aspect, where it's like I can sit behind the drums and whatever I'm feeling in that moment needs to be the thing if I'm in a creative vibe, so all those different people that are doing all this stuff, I love so many of the current drummers. There's like Krim and like Jasper van Barendrecht.
I know Krim, yeah,
Krim is amazing. Jasper van Barendrecht is Dutch drummer who I discovered with a band called Dodecahedron, but he does like a lot of different things. He's absolutely incredible. I mean, there's so many. There's just so many guys. Like I could list like dozens, and I just take inspiration from all of them because they all sound unique, and I think it's beautiful.
Do you think? And I agree. I look at everybody and I'm like, they could do something like that. I want to learn it. At least I want to know what it's about. Right? Yeah. I'm inquisitive in that sense. I think it's wrong to look at it as I think some people look at it as a sport. Right? They're just taking this and like very competitive. I think it's completely wrong. Yeah. But here's a question for you. What do you think? Well, let's phrase it like this. Do you think there's physical limitations per the individual?
That's a great question. I've thought about that a lot over the years. My singer, Guillaume, in my first band, who passed away a few years ago, sadly, but he used to kind of joke, because I've always been obsessed with blast beats and playing fast, and he used to always be like, you'll never play faster than you play naturally, and I was always in my mind like, I'm gonna prove you wrong.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? But he was always like, this is how fast you can play, you'll never really get beyond that. If you look at it from an athletic perspective, like let's say a speed runner, like a sprinter, it's like, how much lower than your barrier can you really go, even if you practice like constantly? So there's probably something to it. There's probably the physical aspect of like how everybody's built. Like I don't have big arms, so it's probably limiting for me. If I had more muscles here, I could probably do certain things differently. Maybe. The twitch nerve, that gets talked about a lot, how some people can just, but again, I don't spend too much time thinking about that, because at the end of the day, I also know that for a quote unquote normal person, or I should say a non-drummer, whether a guy's playing 210 BPM or 250 or 300, it doesn't matter. Well,
this is the main point. You have to serve the music.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, your audience really isn't drummers.
Yeah.
You play in one of the biggest bands of all time.
Yeah.
There's drummers in there, but there's everybody else that loves that kind of music, and they've non-musicians and musicians alike, and that's your audience, and you have the drummer people that you're making happy, but you have to serve the music, and that's the main thing. And I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another great thing that I want to bring into this, that my good friend James Stewart, who plays in Decapitated, he told me, he's like, it's a great thing to have limitations, because it forces you to be creative, to find other ways to do it.
Yeah.
Like, for example, this Dirk blast that I use, which is like a switching, between the snare and the hat, that allows me to go pretty much any speed. So,
well, that's the thing, right? If you could figure out a way to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, single strokes at a certain speed, you just might as well play doubles, right?
Right, exactly.
So what's the difference if the end result is the same?
Exactly.
The audience doesn't know.
Yeah.
You're just trying to serve the drummer nerd crowd.
That's exactly it.
So it's diminishing returns.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that some people are like really, on this track of like, I want to be this, and I was there when I was a bit younger, but now I think more in a broader musical sense.
Yeah, sure. and then it brings up at the end of the day, you have to serve the song, but the next level to it is what it actually takes to be successful.
Right.
Let's just say as a drummer, right? So talent is obvious, that's the given. But a guy like yourself, you're playing in a really tight band. I mean, what other skills are required outside of talent to really make it in this biz?
I think actually the drumming is probably the least of it. When
I agree.
When somebody like Dave Mustaine calls you, I think the pre-required condition is like, you can play the stuff, you're a good drummer.
We know you're a good drummer.
Yeah, it's everything else. It's like, how are you as a person? Can you work with a band? Can you tour? Can you deal with everything that comes with being in a band that's under scrutiny, press, like fans, management? I don't know, all the different aspects that come into it. That's probably more important, because there's probably tons of people that could sit down and play Megadeth songs, but not
Right.
everybody can live in that environment and thrive and be a good support to Dave and to the band and a good fit, you know. So I think that part is the most important bit.
It has to be.
Yeah.
And that's no different whether you own a marketing company or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just, and I think people forget about that. They think maybe, oh, I'm the fastest, or I'm this, I'm that, and
Yeah.
you know, I live on YouTube or whatever, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything.
No, the personality is really going to be important, and at the end of the day, that comes down to working on yourself. We're all flawed, you know. We all have issues. I'm the first one to admit that I have my own issues, but I work on them, and I'm constantly. I've always, since I was very young, had this ideal to want to be a good person to, you know, the planet, to people around me, to animals, etc. That's always been kind of in me, and so that's an ongoing process that I'll also never reach the end of, because there's always things to get better at. But I think that's been a big part for me of being able to have the career that I've had so far, because I'm very adaptable and I'm very open to understanding like what's needed here. Can I do this? Okay, let's do it, you know?
I would call it awareness, you know, and I think it's lacking in most people, right? And at least, you know, I talk about it a lot, and, you know, for me, you know, I wasn't always aware.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure you probably didn't start out aware, but actually, I think it's actually a pretty interesting topic. When do you feel like you kind of started to think that way about being aware and taking these things seriously?
It's funny that you should ask, because I think I would call myself very much a heads in the cloud person way too late in life, you know. Like,
right. We are musicians. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it kind of comes with the territory a lot of times. But
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of other people around me grew up a lot faster than I did. And
Yeah.
I was just kind of still a dumb kid at like 35, you know, who didn't really get it, you know. So it came really late for me. And I think if I had the Megadeth call like 5 years earlier, I might have fucked it up, you know, or not been able to deal with it, you know. But I started really working on myself like in my mid to late 30s, really being aware of like, you know, I'm married, like I really want to, you know, be a good husband to my wife.
Yeah.
You know, I have these problems that are obviously there since I'm young, and I need to figure out what they are. Yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid to say I go to therapy. It's super helpful for me. I think mental health is a really important thing, and, you know, it's something that the generation of our parents, for the most part, didn't really embrace at all. Yeah, like, what are you talking about? Like, that's stupid, you know? So, like, for me, I've fully embraced it. I love to see younger people embracing it and talking about it. I think it's just as important as physical health and everything else.
You're 100% right. And I think people don't quite understand the amount of work that a human being has to put into himself. Look, living today is harder than it's ever been. I mean, it's just getting progressively more difficult.
Right.
You have to work on all that shit.
Yeah.
Constantly. And, you know, you woke up at, let's say, 35 or whatever. And I think that's a good age for most people, I think, you know, especially the creative types, but it has to happen.
It has
or
to
you're
happen.
Fucked.
Yeah.
You know, what are you going to do?
You can't let your flaws define you,
right.
You know, because we all have flaws and they're all allowed to be there and to be worked on to some degree, but you can't let them become the thing that stops you from progressing in the world, unless that's what you want and you don't care and you just want to be like I was and you, maybe everybody when you're young, like, no, this is how I am, fuck you, you know?
Well, I think, and I just had this conversation with JP Bouvet about health. I don't think you can come into awareness. I think people are unhealthy. Okay. And if you're unhealthy, your brain doesn't work. It's that simple.
Right.
And when we talk about like health and happiness and all this, I think people that are depressed, and obviously there's people that need medication, whatever, we don't have to go there, but I think generally people are so unhealthy that the brains don't work. And we can call it whatever deficiency, nutritional, diet, whatever it is, the brain's not working. Yeah. So you can't get to awareness. You're always in the mud. So you have to make that decision to focus on your health at some point. And whether that's switching whatever it is, right? You just start that process. And then that, for me, I've been working on my health 15 plus years, right? Yeah. And I'm still evolving every day. I don't have it figured out. That's why I don't preach any particular modality. Right. You eat plant-based, I eat a little meat. You know, we're all individuals. Right. But you have to make that decision at some point to say, I got to work on my health. And maybe this will start working better. Right. And that's what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can lead the horse to water, but you know,
exactly.
That's the thing with everything. It's like with people who are addicted, you could tell them a million times you got to stop, but if they don't want it, it's not going to happen. So, and it's the same with this. You have to make, like you said, you have to make the conscious decision to be like, okay, I need to work on myself if I want to get better. You know, it's that simple. And once you dedicate yourself to that and you're like, this becomes a part of my life now, then you're going to slowly get better, whichever way it is. Like you said, I also don't preach a particular way.
Yeah.
I always really quick about the plant-based thing. I think it's an important thing because I say this to people and they're like, oh, I never thought about that. You know, so I think it's cool to say, you know, society tells us like, you know, or people like, oh, it's either you're vegan and you're like this hardcore, like, you know, waving flags and stuff, or you eat like red meat like 3 times a day. I always tell people like, you know, you can have a vegan day once a week, you know, and that would make a massive difference in the world. If everybody in the world like didn't eat meat for one day, like imagine that would be like a 20 or 15%.
It's a big
less
reprieve.
meat made in the world. Like that would be insane. So you don't have to be anything, you know, you can just kind of think about it and maybe integrate it in some way that works for you, you know, or even once every other week if you want, you know.
This is the noise we have to deal with today that was never, you know, you know, I still read books. I'm a huge reader. And, you know, today it's just like you got every damn expert, you know, vegetables are bad. Meat is bad. This is bad. That's great. Do this. It's nuts. It's nuts. So I don't know how someone can make a decision. And the only thing I can tell people is that give yourself a good decade to figure yourself out. Because there's nothing coming out, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to just switch diets and maybe you'll feel a little better, but you know, it may not be the thing for you. And you have to give it, it's like anything else in life. You have to let it ride a little bit and then see where you are.
Listen to your body, listen to your mind.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. But if this starts clearing up, that's a good sign.
It is, right?
It's a really good sign.
It's a very good sign. No, and at the end of the day, it's again, you know, it's all about like, we're all individuals. You know, there's so much information out there, like you said. So you have to be willing to do a little bit of testing things out. You know? And maybe talk to people, you know, that maybe are successful this way or this works for them. And then maybe it won't work for you, but you can get something out of it anyway.
It's like, you know, I have a hand technique I do. I play traditional grip. And it's like, you know, people come to me for that particular thing. I'll teach you that, but I'm not telling you that this is the right way to do it. This is just the way I do it. It works for me. It served me. It's helped other people. It may not work for you, but it's that simple. And people just people make a lot of money off of selling a lot of shit. Man.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the society we live in.
That's always been the case. I wanted to talk about now, and this is something I preach a lot. You're a multi-instrumentalist. As am I. I always say that drummers should pick up another instrument, and I don't care if they're, you know, on their deathbed or just starting out. I think most musicians should at least dabble with other instruments. But how has being a multi-instrumentalist shaped your playing and shaped your career?
It's a wonderful thing for me. I agree 100% that every drummer and every musician should try different things, because if you have an interest in music, there's no reason you shouldn't, you know. And for me, it's definitely helped me a lot in understanding the people I'm playing with, understanding what they're doing, what they're looking for, also contributing. Like I've written music for, you know, this upcoming Megadeth album that's coming out next year. And then the previous one, I have riffs of mine on there. And I don't consider myself this amazing guitar player at all. You know, I don't level up at all to like the people I'm in the band with, but it's good enough to write stuff and to come up with ideas that are good enough. And I create my own music, and, you know, it's in all situations, it's a great situation to be able to do that.
I mean, it's zero downside. Zero.
Exactly.
You know? That brings up a good point about writing with or for Megadeth. How does that go down with, I know, you know, Dave being the lead guy, there's a lot of schools of thought on the kind of guy he is, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's held one of the most successful bands in the industry, and he's a pretty talented guy. What's it like writing with Megadeth?
It's like everything, you know, you have to, anybody you work with, I've worked with so many different people and continue to do so. And you have to figure out what works for them, what their process is, what they're looking for, what they're expecting, you know, and that's always a bit of a search in the beginning and a bit of a trial and error sometimes. Dave is very straightforward, always about, you know, he's a very straightforward person. Whatever anybody says about him, like with him, you get what you see, you know, and he'll tell you straight to your face if he doesn't like something or if he's looking for something or whatever. So it was pretty easy actually to figure out with him what he wants. You know, he's like, hey guys, like I want you all to contribute stuff. I want to do it this way and this way. Contribute your stuff, like put the riffs here, you know, whatever. So, okay. So then you do that, and then we work through it, and and in the end I have songs on the record. So
Amazing.
like clearly it works, you know. And
Yeah.
of course there's also an understanding that like I grew up with Megadeth, kind of like you know, it's been in my life, and so I
damn
understand
straight,
the
yeah.
band, you know.
Yeah.
So that helps. If it was
course.
something that I didn't have an understanding of, I may not be able to contribute much in that regard.
That's just crazy cool on another
Yeah.
level anyway, that you get to contribute to a band that you actually were
It's insane.
obsessed with. I mean, that's pretty
It's
amazing.
insane. Oh yeah. It's,
Well, tell me about like so when did you guys wrap that record?
just now, you know,
You just finished.
It just got finished mastering like 3 days ago.
You guys did it here?
No, in Nashville where Dave lives. I did the drums here at One on One.
So you do your drums
Yeah.
separate?
Yeah,
here?
but
Okay.
everything else was done in Nashville. So.
Tell me about like, is there any, so you wrote some riffs and brought some music to the table. Is that kind of a joint thing, or is that all just done kind of remotely?
It's so I spent a lot of time in Nashville together with the other band members, and we just, you know, worked on stuff day after day, and so at night we would go and write stuff, work on our computers and stuff, and then the next day like put it in the Dropbox at night, and then the next day go, hey Dave, check this out.
So Dave will kind of pop in, or he'll just check it out.
He'll during the day we'll be in the studio, and
Yeah.
he'll come like, all right guys, did you guys do anything? Okay, let's listen, and then whatever he liked and stuff would go into a folder of like, okay, these are potential candidates for us to work on, and then some of it would, you know, end up being a song. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
What about the previous album? Did you have any writing credits on that?
Yeah,
or?
same.
You
Yeah,
did.
I have one song on there that was pretty much based on a demo I made, and then Dave kind of worked on it with me and improved it a lot, you know, because he's a much better guitar player than I am.
It's a good record. It's a good record. I love the way it was recorded. It sounds very Megadeth, but it also has the contemporary kind of production that this music needs today. And I found it's a really good record.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with it too, and I think this new one's going to be even more like that. You know, it's a bit more organic, but still has the modern punch, and it feels even more Megadeth, this new record, to me than the previous one. So,
Wow. And then so you started 10 years ago with Megadeth, something like that.
Yeah.
How has the sets changed? How's the touring changed? Like what?
Well, you know, the whole, if you look at it from a like the aspect of like how has the touring become, as opposed to when I started, it's become like the main thing now with the changes in the music business. Like touring is where
the money
our
is.
bread and butter.
Yeah, it's
you
the
know,
bread and
that's
butter. Yeah.
everything. So that's kind of been a noticeable shift. But of course, at the level of Megadeth, it's always been an important thing anyway.
Sure.
For me, it's been on a personal level. You know, it's been an incredible learning, you know, situation. Like I've learned so much just seeing how everything operates, like how Dave runs the ship, you know, all the things that are required. And I've really built, I think, a lot of confidence and ease of, you know, like I'm naturally a very introverted person. Yeah. And so those things were usually a bit difficult for me, even in the Soilwork years. And now I've just really learned to be like, you know, just embrace the public side of it, because you kind of have to. It doesn't have to change who I am. Yeah. You have to have the right skin for that. But I mean, I think that's a cool benefit, you know, just to enjoy the ride a little bit. You are with a serious unit that's, you know, has done a lot. Yeah, I fought against it for a while, you know, because I don't like this and I don't like that. And then I was like, you know what, I should just really just embrace this, because it's only going to last so long. I mean, we're doing our farewell tour now. Right. So, which will encompass a year or two at least, right? Oh, probably more than that. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Really? It's going to be a minute, yeah. Wow. So like how many dates would you guys do in a year on something like that? You know, it depends. We don't do the most dense touring. We take days off on a regular basis to allow, especially Dave, but everybody to kind of regenerate. Dave's like 90, so yeah, you know, he's turning 64, so yeah. But we usually do like 20 to 30 shows per run, you know, per leg of a tour, and so it could easily be 120, 130 shows a year, you know. So you just do your geographic pockets with those 20, 30 shows. And there's probably going to be some that will do more than once, I would imagine, since it's a farewell tour, you know. You don't just go like, you know, like, hey, US, see you later, we're going to go all these other places. Now, it'll probably end in the US, I would imagine, since it's a US band, you know, that would make sense. That starts next year. Yeah. Okay. We have a tour now in Europe in a couple of weeks that starts, but I wouldn't say that's really part of the farewell tour. We're opening for Disturbed. But
Oh,
I think next year that's going to be the proper, like all the Megadeth shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Very.
And it's far enough out. I mean, if you got a couple year run, I mean, you don't even need to start planning. You're good. I mean,
exactly. For now, I'm just going to focus on this and do the best I can.
And, and then whatever happens after that, which brings me to my next question. For you, like your personal bread and butter in terms of what you really love doing, is that more being in the studio, creating, being on the road and doing shows, or combination? What is your jam?
I mean, it's been a combination, but kind of out of necessity. I'm not the biggest fan of the traveling part of touring, like probably most musicians will tell you. That part gets kind of old.
It's gotten better with a band like Megadeth, I can imagine.
Sure, yeah, the conditions are the conditions are nice, but but for the most part, but like it's more about, as you get older, you want to spend more time at home. You don't want to miss your cat passing away because you're playing in Japan, like happened to me a couple of years ago. You don't want to miss your wife's 40th birthday, which happened to me years ago when I was still in Soilwork, and like she's partying with everybody and you're the guy that's not there for 4 weeks because you're on tour. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's also kind of the stuff that personally, as I get older, I'm like, really, come on, because you see, there's going to be an end to everything, and how much of it do you want to sacrifice for playing some more shows and sitting in a bus somewhere? So ideally, I would like to tour less in the future.
Sure.
I love studio work, creative work, that's like super fun.
Yeah.
I could do that here. I could do that anywhere. I could do that anytime.
Okay.
So that would be my ideal thing, but is it possible? I don't know. The business is changing so rapidly that I'm going to have to figure that out.
Do you ever see yourself leading a band?
I do. I have my own project, Benzi, which is like
Ben's okay.
Yeah, which is like very extreme kind of underground music, but that's part of what I like. But that's kind of my baby. And who knows what else there might be in the future. We'll see.
That's cool, man.
I think starting a new project now and really building it up, even for people that are already established, seems to be very difficult. I see other people doing it, and it doesn't seem to be easy at all. So it's just the nature of the way people consume music and stuff is so different now that I'm kind of looking more at other avenues, like online stuff,
Sure.
I have ideas for just having more of a presence online that can probably bring something new. Like I had this, I went to Drumeo and one of the videos I did there just blew up like insane. And that really opened my eyes to wow, okay,
Do you like doing the clinics?
Love the clinics.
Yeah, the clinics
absolutely.
are fun.
Yeah, super fun. Sharing knowledge, like just the Q&As are amazing. Seeing kids there, like the other day at the clinic here, having some young people there that are getting inspired. That's like one of the best things because
it's so cool.
Yeah. Sometimes you wonder, is there going to be metal in 20 years from now? And then you see that, you're like, yes.
Well, I guess so. He's
exactly. He's into it. You know?
No, I love doing clinics. I do quite a bit, and mostly in Europe. And
in Europe it seems to be more.
I just find. Well, I mean, you're European, man, so I don't have to tell you. There's just there's a different level of passion, and just different interest level from that continent.
I think it's also a practical thing, a purely practical thing, because in Europe it's easy to travel. Everything's like
it's very easy to travel around. It's very easy to tour in Europe. It's very, very
doing a drum clinic tour here where you have to like fly or drive like 1,000 miles between each show is not that easy.
But so we could talk about this a little because I work. Riccardo Merlini.
Yeah.
One of my best friends. I
Nice.
do a lot with him. I do a lot of, and we do a lot of stuff in Italy. But a guy like him, he manages to put on his own camps, and he's doing very well with it. But it's requiring us to do this stuff. You don't get the support of the brands like you used to. Now you're at a completely different level too. But even then, like you don't really see you probably don't have a lot of clinic tours coming your way from your. Like you should have.
I have some. I did one recently for Tama in Europe a couple of months ago, but that was the first one in a bit.
And the shops are few and far between. Yeah. They're not really supporting it, so it's a very tough time to do the educational thing in person. So I love the online educational space. Right. Yeah. A lot of friends in it. A lot of people doing very well, doing great things. But there's only so much you can learn from a YouTube video. Yeah. Because your technique for the Dirk Blast, right? Yeah, you could watch it, right? And you can probably pick it up and get an idea. Yeah. But if you see Dirk do it, and then if you have Dirk come over and say, well, move your hand this way a little bit, and let me show you how to, that's priceless for somebody that's trying to soak up that knowledge. Especially with like techniques and the feet and everything.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why it's so hard to have more people come out. What do you think it's the money? Do you think it's people just want to sit in their room and be on their fucking phones? Like, what is it?
It's probably a bit of a combination of all those things, I think. I think nowadays younger people obviously grow up, I remember growing up and having like, a PC that was like monochrome, that was like the first computer in my house, and then a Commodore 64 with like text-based adventure games. Like, you see a tree and there's a cave to the left, where do you go? And then you type in, I go right, Like, that was the level of stuff. Nowadays kids grow up with like everything's at their fingertips. So I think it's just a completely different state of mind. And maybe it's not until they realize how much more inspiring it is to see something in person, or to see a band or a musician right in front of you versus online, that maybe they realize like, oh, maybe I should go to more of these. I don't know. So personally, I also know what it feels like to be like, do we really want to go to a show tonight? Let's just stay home.
I get that. I get that. But I also feel like it's kind of, it's very American, because we're very spoiled, right? Like, because like I said, like you could probably, you could probably get a lot more people to come out and see something. Yeah, I don't know, Spain or Italy or France or whatever. Just because that interest level is just there's still a visceral connection there, and I think we've lost that over here. Because I think about it, like L.A., right? You got the best musicians in the world here. And a lot of them are. It's hard to pin them down, but when you can, like.
But people go to see the bands.
People go see the bands. Yeah, they'll spend the money on that. So, it just I have a hard time just kind of cracking this code. And that's why I give it to guys like Zed. Because it's requiring, the guys on the ground, because like I said, there's no support from the shops, from the brands, from anything. So it's like, the drum shows are just getting smaller and smaller. Although Vegas Rudy's doing a great job with that show. I don't know if you've been there or not.
No,
but,
I have not.
He's doing a great job trying to grow that one. But I love seeing people put the energy into the biz, because it's not that it's drying up, it's getting bigger than ever. Right. But it's changing.
It's
changing.
That's the challenge, right? With I think probably any field you're in, it's like, are you going to stick to what you do and just hope that keeps working, or are you going to adapt?
But is it changing for the better? Because at the end, music is about people. It's about people being in the room and playing together. And, that's what's a tough one for me to swallow.
It is tough, but I think, luckily you can't download a show yet, in the sense of like being at a show or being at a drum clinic, or luckily that's not something we can do yet.
Dirk, it's going to happen it's going to wipe us all out
at some point.
They're just going to have the goggles, and you're going to be right as close as you ever wanted to be.
Right, but even then, like I went to this Rolling Stones exhibit with my wife some years ago, and they had kind of like the virtual thing where you put on a thing and it's like being at a show, but even that is like nowhere near.
They were doing a lot of that during COVID. A lot of people just trying to make things work that were like
it's fine and all, but it's not it's kind of like I compare it to like playing electronic drums, which I love, Roland, versus like playing an acoustic kit. They're two different instruments. The only similarity is you're hitting stuff and you're having the same sounds, but other than that, like the way it plays and stuff is like, I've played on a Roland kit for practicing and recording purposes and stuff for 20 years now. And it took me that long to be really comfortable playing it,
Oh, completely different instrument.
Because the dynamics are just not, it's never going to be the same thing. Simulated dynamics versus real ones, It's just not.
No.
So it's kind of like that,
They're making strides with the electronic stuff. I mean, I'm Roland, always ahead of the game, but that brand F Note, have you played those?
No.
Out of Japan?
No.
They're some really good electronic drums. Yeah.
Amazing.
Very responsive. You got to check them out. They're usually always at the shows, and but incredible. Like you could really get a lot out of them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's making, I've worked with TuneTrack for many years, so I use the Roland pretty much as trigger unit, and then
that's
I use
incredible,
the TuneTrack Superior Drummer, which now with the Metal Mania EasyX, I have my own kits in there.
Oh,
that
cool.
came out last year, so I have like my Megadeth kit, my old Soilwork kit, and then a third kit and a bunch of extra stuff. Wow. So now when I sit at the E-drums, it's basically like, it's the kit that's sitting back there, except in
you sampled
in
those
here.
Actual kits.
Oh yeah, at one-on-one, which is like one of the best drum rooms.
Wow!
And so it's I'm super happy with that. It's super privileged to have that for myself, but it's also just a great tool. But yeah, anyways, to get back to what you're saying, I think in the end of the day, the human connection, just even people just being at an event together and talking and hanging out and stuff. That's why bands nowadays, bread and butter is on tour, because people get to be there, they get to experience it. For those who have the the desire and the finances, they can meet us, they can
Yeah.
get shit from us that
Yeah.
you can't get anywhere else. And that's where it's at, because that's something that you cannot download, that you cannot get when you're at home. It's a closeness, like it's a presence, So that's kind of, where we're headed, unfortunately, or fortunately with this stuff. I don't know.
I don't know.
But
I don't know.
That's the reality of it. That's what the internet has done. On the other hand, I got to play devil's advocate. I remember the days when, I started Scarve, my first band, and we were sending demo cassettes by mail to like Indonesia and hope that would get a review and some fanzine there.
Sure.
Nowadays you can go on Bandcamp and YouTube, whatever, throw your music up and like, you have the world at your fingertips. So there's a lot of like give and take there,
100%.
Yeah.
100%. What's Dirk do outside of drumming?
Do I do anything outside of drumming?
That's what I want to know.
No, man, I love spending time with my wife, Hannah, spending time with my dogs. We used to have cats too, like you and I were talking earlier. I love animals. So just doing house stuff, being at home, taking my dogs for a walk, like just very simple things, really, kind of balancing out the madness and the craziness of what my job is with a very, simple, like, I would say normal life, spending time with friends,
I would imagine you need quiet after playing in a metal band.
Yeah. That's probably part of why I listen to more and more jazz as I'm getting older, and just enjoying getting up in the morning and throwing on some John Coltrane or whatever, because it's a lot more like, like I joke, I used to put on Scum by Napalm Death when I get up in the morning.
That's how you started your day, huh?
Yeah, it still happens occasionally, but now it's more often.
No, it's like Charlie Parker,
Yeah, exactly. Something a bit more, But yeah, man, I do a lot of stuff for animals too, and for nature. I have a nonprofit that I co-founded a couple of years ago called Savage Lands, which is really growing and doing a lot of great stuff. We do reforestation, land preservation. Nice. We educate people on all those subjects, and we really try to make a difference by just, because those things are important. Biodiversity preservation is, 100%. I think, something that with the whole, carbon, the discussion is always about CO2 and stuff. And of course, sure, but at the end of the day, what really the foundation of all of it, which my partner in Savage Land, Sylvain, is very adamant about, is that we need to preserve biodiversity.
Well, destroying the soil.
If that goes away,
no, you're dead.
Like that doesn't just come back.
No, you can't grow anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So like all these things, these pockets that we still have on the planet, they need to be fought for, and that's what we do. So.
Do you still like being in LA?
Yeah, man, I love it, because as much as I love nature and animals and stuff, I think LA has all that, and to some degree
it does.
And I need to be here for my work, It's just, and I love the climate, I love the city, I love the people. People are always like, LA, everybody's fake. I'm like, not at all. Like, there's fake people everywhere, and it depends on who you hang out with, I guess. I meet a lot of real people here.
Me too. So my best friends are here.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to swim through the shit. There's no question. Yeah. You're getting a lot of crazies, but
but that's everywhere.
Where's that not happening?
Yeah, I love I think it's, once you're here, it's hard to go anywhere else for me personally.
I think it's a tough place to leave. I live in a few different places, but this is my favorite, Do you ever see yourself maybe retiring to Europe or kind of going back there and kicking it?
I can't feel it now, maybe. Like, I love a lot of places in the world, but I don't have any desire to be anywhere else right now. I get to go anywhere. Like, I get to visit my family in Europe usually at least once a year because of touring and stuff.
Sure. I figured that.
Yeah. So I have no desire for that. Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Love LA.
I'm with you on that, dude. I'm with you. Let me ask you a couple questions here. Quick fire questions.
Yeah.
What would you say is one habit you've implemented that's kind of really revolutionized your life?
I have a good one for you. I used to let moods determine my days, when I was less mentally aware and took less care of myself. I decided one day that, like, I was not going to let a bad mood ruin my day, the days of those around me, So I decided, like, when I wake up sometimes with some crappy thoughts or just a bad vibe, which happens, I'm going to give that 5 minutes to kind of fucking sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, done. Okay, now, like, look around, look at my life, like, look at all the beautiful stuff. Like, now you're going to enjoy it. And it works, I've taught myself to do that, and it works like 99.5% of the time.
Attitude adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that happen when you were 35?
A bit later, I would say, like probably around 40, yeah.
Okay.
That was part of my thing, but that's the thing I
love that.
stumbled on myself, and I decided to do it, and it really worked for me. So,
I love that, man. I love that. It's a big one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
One habit, essentially non-negotiable.
Coffee.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough.
Like I don't drink, I don't do drugs, never have. I
Yeah.
used to drink, but I stopped a long time ago. I eat very healthy. I'm pretty much a straight edge guy, but coffee,
Not moving past the coffee.
Yeah, no.
All right. Last one for you.
Yeah.
What's one book you think everybody should read?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a great question. I read a lot of fiction, so
Well, that's cool too.
yeah. I want to come up with something that's more useful, but I don't really have any in my brain right now. So I'm gonna just say, Clive Barker, Books of Blood.
Okay.
I probably would have something more useful if I had it in my brain right now. But if you want to have some really good classic horror, also Ray Bradbury, some of the classic Ray Bradbury books are really so beautifully written that sometimes I'm like, I'll read a page and I'll be like, that was so amazing. I have to just reread this page because the way he put the words together is just like, that's when you realize how everything is art, that it's not just like, oh, here's a writer telling a story. It's like, no, like he's doing stuff that like, it's astonishing.
This is where I get all my future book recommendations. So
there you go.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Something wicked this way comes, like you can't go wrong.
Nothing better than kicking back, maybe a little jazz in the background.
Yeah,
and a book.
exactly. Yeah. Or some really dark, weird music for those books.
Not Napalm Death.
No.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on. It's a real pleasure, real honor to have you. And you're a phenomenal player and great dude, and I know you'd be a great guest.
Thank you.
If you want to tell everybody where they can find you, your Instagram handles, by all means, tell the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. It's been really fun. So you can find me. I'm a lot on Instagram, Dirk Verbeuren, Facebook, Dirk Verbeuren Drummer, YouTube, also Dirk Verbeuren Drummer, and check out the new Megadeth when it comes out. Come see us on tour. I also got a Ben T album that's coming out in a few days. So,
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff. Yeah.
Thank you again. Dirk Verbeuren, guys. Real class act. Amazing guy. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, man.
Kept it nice and short for you, bro.
Oh, man.